Hey Remoris, it's me, Mr. Sharx. Where were we? Oh, that seems about right. If you need context to live, watch part 1 if you haven't already. Welcome to the Carboniferous, or the Pennsylvanian if you're a nerd. Certainly the Ashgabat of the Paleozoic era. Look at those trees. That aren't trees, like you've never looked at anything before. And tell me, with a straight face, that they don't look like the lampposts. We need to talk about those little bastards from the Silurian again. It turns out that they were little drug dealers too. I'll go more in depth on them than I did in the previous video. They sold this air oxygen stuff at black markets. Sales were pedestrian. Not good enough. Then they started giving it away like a broken piñata. It was at that point oxygen's popularity skyrocketed. Fish grew legs to get them. Fish that didn't feel like growing legs were fine with the oxygen in the water. Guess who was laughing when algae blooms bloomed throughout the ocean? Prices going back up and then some didn't stop the rave, so everyone involved lived the American dream. In the Carboniferous, Earth's stonerism was at a level never seen before nor since. It grew out of this phase 10 million 30 years ago, so at that point it decided enough was enough and went sober for a little bit. Just for a little bit. The bottom of the barrel of Earth's rehabilitation is a story for another video. The story for this video is about the epiphany and jumping into the barrel from a high dive. In other words, Earth's prime, if you know what I mean. If you thought the 1960s were colorful, bruh. The negative 300 million 60s will make you feel like a mantis shrimp. The decade was shaped by who else but the arthropods. They benefited from this fad called oxygen stacking more than anyone else. In those days, there weren't a lot of options for escapism. The only other way to leave reality was to beat up vertebrates. Their words, not mine. They would become big and strong. Ironically, big and strong enough to return to work. Big and strong enough to take China back. Big and strong enough to shape the Carboniferous into one of the most distinct periods in Earth's history. Disclaimer. You can become big and strong by reading good books. Pop culture was dominated by arthropods. There wasn't a second of television time without the voice of a wild personality in that era. Consider the Blitzy Glitzy Spider, loved oxygen, 4 joints a day, by sea and by land. Let me explain. You 2000s kids are aware of that anti-cigarette imagine if it did to you on the outside what it did to you on the inside sentence. That shiz happened in real life. BGS bamboozled Kenny, the BBC, and negative 300 million 60s America into thinking she was a spider, when she really was a...
You gotta be
definite in here.
Please.
I see the look in your eye. And let me explain a few things. It's been a long time since you and I have been in the ring together. And a lot of things have changed. You look great. But obviously Mother Nature has not been too kind to me. I have heart problems. I've got this murmur that just won't seem to go away.
Austin stunts the boss! Austin stunts Mr. McMahon! Some things never change, Gold. I was gonna say, but the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Now, the negative 300 million 60s were too dangerous to go out and about on your own. Even having food to go was ill-advised. My thoughts exactly. Another juggernaut from those times, Queen Elizabeth. Rather iconic and summed up the late Carboniferous period well. She changed animals forever by popularizing wings. Never forget that without Queen Elizabeth, the birds, the bees, and the pterosaurs wouldn't have gotten off the ground. Paul McCartney's post-Beatles band would have been called Paul McCartney and Denny's. As her fame grew, so did her shadow. Most stars ended up being blocked from the sun. Like BGS, critics would turn against her and refer to her as Duchess BGS. Once you tripped out of the spotlight in those days, you were just another rando on the streets. Some celebs say they desire to be inconspicuous, but as we all know, the water always looks clear from the other side of the sandbar. BGS herself said that not having her abdomen kissed for a second for the first time in a decade was jarring. The third subject of the setting, Milhouse, would agree. Now take all 3 of these famous snobs and consider this. Would you be okay with your child buying their shit? Need I remind you that they opposed the civil rights movement? Okay, I can't talk about the negative 300 million 60s without mentioning the drastic cultural shift it prompted. At the time, the tetrapods were rapidly diversifying. But nobody cared. Amphibians aren't reptiliomorphs and reptiliomorphs aren't amphibians.
amphibians.
But not to Kenny. He thought, who cares, they all live the same. By negative 300,000,063, tensions came to a head. A Proterosuchus, not just an amphibian, which, once again, it is not, ran into the one and only Millhouse besides all other people named Millhouse. Enough was enough for the Proterosuchus. Millhouse's statements hurt his feelings one too many times. There was pushing, screaming, name-calling. It was a mess. Right when you thought things couldn't get any worse, they did. Two souls that had no business being with each other started a firestorm. Riots broke out across Laurasia. The autocratic regimes in Gondwana, including the Ding dynasty, stated their disgust while cackling to themselves. The outrage spread like nuclear cooties. No one was safe, not even BGS, who cheered the violence on while warm and cozy in her studio burrow. Earth was never the same after that. It hastily began to quit oxygen stacking and started an ad campaign against it, hoping to kill it off and take the nut jobs it produced with it. The Ashgabat of the Paleozoic came to a fiery end. Same with this segment of the documentary. Unfortunately, we do not have a Carboniferous placeholder to watch evolve and get us to the next period. Petrolachosaurus? That's on the opposite side of the amniotic split though. Whatever.
Their muscles and bones broaden and extend.
This is a lot to just go with, but we need to get to the most iconic period of the Paleozoic somehow. Welcome to the Permian, a world dominated by primitive synapsids. Isn't that right, Kenny?
They're part of a very special group of creatures called mammal-like reptiles.
Oh, Kenny. Reptile-like mammals would have been more suitable. To grossly simplify, there was an amniotic split, not an amniote split. I hope the person who coined this term is out of the field entirely with no exceptions. Thankfully, it's never barfed out again. I hate this conversation. By the Permian, the Earth was fighting some terrible withdrawal symptoms. Misguidance and misinformation caused the Earth to regularly switch between chills and fevers. One group that had to deal with this new and improved Earth were the Edaphosaurus-like synapsids. They're just mining their own beeswax, or at least trying to, with remnants of Queen Elizabeth's fanbase stating that her work will be studied by aliens to understand Earth's culture in 1,000 years. I'm not into this slice of life stuff, you know, it's called Action 52. I want some action. Oh, snap! I didn't say anything about selling my soul, did I? Here she is, one of the most famous, if not the most famous animal from the Paleozoic, the Dimetrodon like a Dilophosaurus. Oh, that lady? That lady running at you? Lady Dimitrescu? Why do you care about her running? Why are you running?
The young Edaphosaurus didn't stand a chance.
Dimetrodon society is still a patriarchal society. Add to the fact that manners weren't invented yet, the sustenance Lady Dimitrescu desperately needs is now for the boy Dimetrodon-like girl Dimetrodons. I say desperately because she's on maternity leave. How can you put food on the table or pay your taxes when you have cute little responsibilities at home? Turn your back for one jiff and you failed as a parent by Dimetrodon standards. There are people calculating in the shadows
Like this carnivorous amphibian.
Reptiliomorph like Reptiliomorph. Parenting has some pretty harsh requirements, but I for one believe in Lady Dimitrescu. And she performs as promised. She fights in the snow, she fights in the sun, she fights whatever the earth throws at her with a smirk-like smile. Anything done out of Earth's free will, the same one that made it a junkie, flopped. But those with literally any other free will were something to be reckoned with. Such as this not Lady Dimitrescu-like Dimetrodon who has the audacity to claim our heroine's hard work as her own.
If she takes over the mound, she'll dig out and kill the incubating young already inside.
But there's really nothing Lady Dimitrescu can't handle, so as the BBC gives you a do-it-yourself adventure in the middle of an epic fight, do not underestimate in your imagination. My headcanon is that of her having a giant mech suit hidden by bricks and rubble, which she uses to finish the fight. Call her a cheater, pumpkin eater all you want, but what would you do if this happened to you? We all know you would pull out your mech suit too. Things are looking up though. She can drop her dead-end job at Lazard, Condodactyl & Cohen and become a pirate that fights the tyrannical Dung dynasty. Objectively speaking though, she may not smash the physical in her current state. She's too worn out to stop this dude from...
Luckily, this large male has got his teeth into something more substantial than her young.
Oh, okay.
The amphibian.
Oh, well that's a shame. No, it really is. How can I not feel sympathy as Kenny holds back a chuckle talking about the hunt? The
precious eggs are safe and ready to hatch.
Lady Dimitrescu, this is a massive dub for mothers everywhere. You've given birth to the first and only adult Dimetrodon like baby Dimetrodons. No, the BBC wasn't being lazy. The fully grown sales are for brand recognition. They're plopped into the world with no experience or training, and society is already like, good luck. You're up against grown-ups now. They do this stuff for a living. This is how they feed their families.
They roll in dung. Something the adults can't stand.
Thank you, BBC. Thank you and goodbye.